to the four corners of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. This is KMMU Main Street Media, Utah, coming to you live. We stream live on YouTube, Rumble, X Twitter, and our website, kmmu.org. Please join our host, Goud Maragani, for the Goud Crowd.
Thanks for the intro. Oh, you guys got a live version. We've actually been testing I think a recorded version, but you got the real deal. Okay, so today, I think we have kind of an exciting show. First, I'll let you guys know, just to lay it out for you, we're going to start by talking about, we'll start by talking about Trump. And then we'll talk about the divorcing the TQ plus from the LGB. For those of you who don't know, I am part of the LGB. And one of the goals of a lot of us that are lesbian, gay, or bisexual has been to, get the TQ plus out of our community and away from us. And I'll explain why. It'll make sense once you understand it. And then today at 6:50, or 5:50. Yeah, 5:50. I'll start talking about, we'll do a talk about HOAs. There's a couple bills, or 3 bills, I think, in the legislature dealing with HOAs. And I run the Utah Gay Straight Coalition, and we have actually been working on this issue since 2023. And these are the first significant bills that we've seen dealing with abuses, of HOA abuses of homeowners, and some of the kind of fixes that the legislature is coming up with. We'll have a call in too from somebody, because the Deseret News did a story that just came out a little while ago that actually deals with this issue and talks with a couple of the people that I've been working with for the past couple of years on the issue. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about it. Okay, so first of all, I just want to start by saying this has been the best 2 weeks. I think it's been 2 weeks, just about, or maybe it's been 2 weeks, right, of a presidency I have ever experienced in my entire life. Every single time I open X, there's something new that makes me happy. President Trump is knocking it out of the park. And I'll just say, I had some doubts about whether he would execute or be able to execute on the vision after what happened in the first term. And I don't blame him for everything that happened in the first term. I actually think he was a businessman. He ran for office, and I don't think he understood how deep and corrupt DC is and how deep that corruption runs. I think that is what led to losing in 2020. Although looking back on it, I'm glad that happened, because although we had a horrendous 4 years that we had to live through, I think it woke a lot of people up, and it allowed President Trump to clearly prepare for a comeback that's just unbelievable. And like I said, he's knocking it on the park on every issue. So today we saw both Mexico and Canada completely caved to his basic demands, which is border security, getting the cartels designated as terrorist organizations, and stopping the flow of people and drugs into our country from their countries. Because the entire open borders problem, I think, is primarily Mexico, but it's also Canada. Biden opened the borders on purpose. And I know there's a bunch of Democrats that like to pretend that he didn't do it on purpose. But the reality is that the Democratic Party is an open borders party, and they will import every single person in the world if they think it will help them electorally. That's their only goal. That party is bad. It needs to go and reform and figure out an American message, and they haven't done it yet. But their entire purpose is to import people to vote for them, and it's just that basic. And the thing is we have people in the Republican Party who are okay with that because they want the cheap labor for their donors. And I think some of you guys have been seeing some of this, right? I saw there was a post, somebody posted online that at a work site, a developer's work site in Utah, 50% of the workers were illegal aliens, 25% were asylum seekers, which is generally, it's going to be people committing fraud. Most asylum seeking is fraud. And then the other 25% are Americans. That is, we're in a Republican state. And if we actually had a pro-America government in our state, they would send immigration to that site and raid it and send all those illegals home. And because, over the weekend, that Wayne Nieder, it's a Wayne Niederhauser? I don't think that's the right name. Hold on, I'll pull this up actually. Here. Oh, Waldrop. Here, I'll share my screen with you guys. This Steve Waldrop guy, he is the governor's housing czar. And I think, as many of you know, Governor Cox is obsessed with building lots of houses. And what he said is, when, one of the talks is they're going to deport illegals, or they're deporting them. It's the best. Every time I see someone getting deported, it is great. It means President Trump is keeping his promise. In my view, every single person who is here illegally needs to be sent home. It is not our responsibility to take care of you. It's not our responsibility to let you stay here. You are taking a job from an American. You are driving down American wages, and you are using our services and driving up our taxes. So if you look at this, he says that he claims that removing a portion of the construction workforce through deportations or more stringent e-verify requirements could result in even less affordable homes on the market as construction firms try to attract the interest of new employees with potentially higher wages. They are now openly admitting that illegal aliens are driving down wages. This is one of the few times I've seen them do this, because if you watch the so-called experts talk about immigration, they will always claim that it has no impact on wages at all, and that you can flood the country with illegals and it will have zero impact on American wages. That is false. It's false. I mean, I think that most people know it inherently. If you've taken a basic economics class, it makes sense. But here, they're admitting it. They are driving down construction wages. These should be good jobs that are going to Americans. And I come at this from the view of, I want American wages, the wages of my fellow Americans, to go up so that you can work that construction job. You can work these working class jobs, and you can have a solid, comfortable middle class lifestyle. I want you to be able to buy that nice home in the suburbs, to have as many kids as you want, to be able to have one spouse stay home and take care of your kids. So just so people know, polling shows that the plurality of people want to be able to have a parent stay home to take care of their kids. And I don't care whether it's the man or the woman, that's up to you, or if you're a same-sex couple, one of you. But that should be up to the couple to decide. But they should have that option, and they should be able to live that comfortable life on one income and have the kids that they want and raise them. And that we should all want that for fellow Americans to be able to achieve. It shouldn't be that you have to have both parents out there in a rat race trying to make money to supply their kids with a comfortable lifestyle. And we do that by making it so that there is a labor shortage and wages go up for all sorts of jobs. And I'll tell you this, just typically what you'll find is the people who are the biggest advocates of tons and tons of immigration to drive down wages have, yeah, we can show that if you want. Sorry, my producer sent me a little message. But typically the people that are the biggest proponents of unfettered immigration into the U.S. don't have to compete with them for jobs. So it's lawyers. It's a lot of times lawyers. And, they'll talk this big talk. We need more illegal immigration. We need more immigration. And then it turns out that they would never have to compete with them, because in order to be in the bar, you actually have to be here legally. I think maybe California might be an exception, but in most places you do. Okay. You can show it, Mr. Producer. Let's see what you got. I think we have a video here about Canadian tariffs. I have not actually seen this, so this could be interesting. Let's see. Here we go. Okay.
Woo, buddy, you're not going to like how this goes. Fun fact, spent 4 years in the North Dakota oil fields. First year was as a flowback operator. The next 3 years was as a lease operator or a pumper, as it were. Yep, 4 years of oil field work in the great state of North Dakota. Oofta. So does the United States purchase a lot of Canadian oil exports? Survey says yes. We actually purchase 97% of the oil that you guys export. And that 97% of oil exports from Canada that we purchase in the United States, that accounts for 81% of your guys' entire oil production. Now, for some reason, you got it in your head that we desperately need to purchase this oil from you. Our oil and energy sector is going to die without Canadian exports. No, it's not. There's a very specific reason we purchase so much. It's because you guys sell that oil to us at a discount. Why would Canada sell so much oil at a discount? Well, simply put, it's because about 75% of your guys' total oil production is sour heavy crude. Oh, well, why doesn't Canada just refine their oil, eh? It's because you guys can't. Your refineries can't handle sour crude. And you guys don't even have the money to maintain or build the infrastructure that it would take to transport this oil across your own country. And that's if you were able to refine it in the first place. So the reason why we get to purchase the lion's share of your oil production at a highly discounted rate is because it's raw fucking oil. And sour oil, packed full of H2S gas, which is the second most lethal gas on the planet, right next to what happens when you burn it. So, because it's so heavily discounted, we actually save money by purchasing your exported oil versus just refining our own oil coming out of the Bakken Shale, which accounts for 61% of our oil production, which is sour heavy crude as well. Now factor in that crude oil accounts for 16% of anything that Canada exports, and we buy 97% of that. Who's going to be hurting more economically if we just stop buying that raw oil from you and deal with refining our own shit? Crude oil by itself is a $124 billion a year industry in Canada, by the way. Just selling raw oil down the Keystone Pipeline to American refineries. $124 billion.
Canada, you can pause it now.
You guys do not have...
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'll just add this piece of it. I think one of the kind of pillars of President Trump's agenda is to start pumping oil even at higher rates. And a lot of people don't realize, but oil sector jobs are really well-paying jobs for working class people. And so I totally support it. We don't need to import anyone else's oil at all.
Sorry about the language, but sometimes that's what you get from X. Okay.
It's okay.
Crude language about crude oil.
We appreciate that here. Okay. So now let me talk about this. This got me super excited. I don't know if some of you guys saw this, but this week or on Friday, I think the State Department updated its website about international travel. And one of the things they did is they removed, they actually removed the TQ plus from our community. And this is huge news. Here you go. So I posted about it, but this is the screenshot here is actually from the State Department website. And this used to be about LGBTQ plus travelers, and they changed it to LGB when they got rid of the TQ plus. And this is fantastic. It is a great start. And I think we need to build on this. But I want to kind of explain to you guys why this is so important. And it's this. To those of us who are lesbian, gay, or bisexual, I think, and you can disagree if you want. We can take calls anytime. Just if anyone wants to call in at any point in time, please feel free. It's 385-899-2134. I would love to hear from you. We can, we can go wherever with the conversation. But But on this, I think being gay is biological. You can disagree with me, and I'll just say that in the same way that someone is heterosexual and you just know it, someone who's gay will probably be in the same position. They may realize it at different points in time in their lives. Not everybody realizes at the same time. But it's just an innate thing. And I would say this, I don't think anyone would choose to be gay, at least not in the past. Maybe today it's different. I don't know, because like doing that means you no longer get to, right? Your life will be very different. You won't have kids, or it's difficult to have kids, I should say, like, your life will just be very different. You can't really, I'll tell you one that's kind of weird, but it's much harder to go and move to, to move to the country, for example, because being gay typically means you're going to want to be somewhere where there's enough people that you might be able to meet another gay person, since a minority of people are gay for obvious reasons. It wouldn't work if everyone was gay. Now compare that, the TQ plus part of this is people with mental health problems. And what they do is it's all mental health problems. So being trans is a mental health problem, being queer is a political identity, and then there's this IA plus whatever. One of them is like asexual, one of them is pansexual. It is all just forms of mental health problems. And so here's the one way to explain it. You could never ever talk about being gay to a child, meaning you don't talk about it in school, it's not a discussion topic, the parents don't talk about it, it's not on TV, and you will still end up with kids who grow up and become gay. Again, to my point that I would argue it's biological. If you never talk about being trans to children, so you don't show them pornographic books, you don't have drag queen story hour, you don't normalize it with them, telling them they can change their sex, you don't have boys playing girls sports and vice versa, you don't expose them to it, you won't have kids come out and be trans. The proof of that is the numbers, right? When you were not promoting it, so when I was growing up, neither of these things were promoted, the numbers of both were lower. And the number of trans was essentially almost zero. And now it's exploded. Well, if you look at gay men, the gay men one's kind of interesting. When they show these, the percentage of men who are gay, it goes up a little bit with acceptance, but it doesn't actually skyrocket, and it stays pretty constant. And I think that's because you can't really get a man to have sex with someone that they don't want to. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but I feel like actually men are a really good test of that sexuality piece of this. So what's happened is that the TQ plus has glommed on to the LGB, because what you'll find with LGB people is typically we just want to be left alone. So, I'm not one that really cares about the gay marriage piece of this. But I also think that government should not be issuing marriage licenses. I think they should issue civil unions, and that marriage is really a religious concept that religious institutions should be granting. That's how I would separate this. But I'm fine with it. Look, we've decided we've gone one way with this, and that's fine. But now all gay people want is just to be left alone. We'll live our lives. We're not trying to run around and, proselytize kids to be gay or, give them porno books because we didn't have porno books when we were kids, or have drag queen story hour. That's like the weirdest thing I think I've ever heard in my life. And or sexualize kids in any way, right? We just want to be able to live our lives as gay men and women, and just be able to have a healthy, fulfilling life where we can make some sort of an impact. The TQ plus, though, has glommed onto us, and they push their completely radical agenda, which includes things like giving your kids pornographic books. That's not a gay issue. That is a trans issue. Making your kids go and watch drag queen story hours. That is a trans issue. letting men go into the women's dorm, which is going on at USU right now. That is a trans issue. And so divorcing the TQ plus from the LGB is a wonderful thing. It needs to happen completely. They should go off and do their own thing. They can push their radical agenda. It will be much more difficult for them to succeed if they have to do it on their own without using those of us who are gay. Okay, so I have some more examples here for you because I think you guys have seen this is actually, it's still a hot topic because, oh, I had one. I think, hold on, let me find this because there was a good one with our resident be part of the LGBTQ plus community, right? Oh, this is my favorite little meme. Here we are. See, it's a SUV and we are kicking the T out. Yeah, that's exactly what needs to happen. So let me go down here because I want to show you guys this, and this will kind of hopefully encapsulate it perfectly for you. So give me 1 second while I find it. Oh, so anyway, Representative Sahara Hayes, she is coined as the only member of the LGBTQ plus community in the Utah legislature. But if we get rid of the TQ plus, then she is no longer a member of our community. Ah, here she is. Here, I'll let you guys listen for a second. It's
happening. The student in question, the RA that this was about, her name is Marcy.
His name is Marcy. He is a boy.
She was doxxed in this instance. Her picture, she had her email address, and she had her dorm shared broadly across the internet. So when I hear...
I mean, people should not dox people, although I don't know if sharing your photo is doxing. I think sharing your address is doxing, so you shouldn't do that. I concur with that piece.
People say that this bill is about privacy and that it is about safety for students. It feels disingenuous to me, given how egregiously hers was being violated. I think it behooves us to remember that this is the 4th year in a row that this body has deliberately singled out transgender students for exclusionary practice.
There's no such thing as a transgender student. That is, she's talking about minors. We have had multiple bills dealing with children who suffer from gender dysphoria. They are not trans. They have gender dysphoria, and they can be, and our goal should be to help them to overcome the gender dysphoria and become comfortable in their birth sex. Telling someone that they are trans and that they were born in the wrong body is an incredibly cruel thing to do to a child and to an adult, to be honest with you. And typically what happens is trans activists like Sahara Hayes, they target children who are uncomfortable in their bodies because, you know, they're growing. Everybody was uncomfortable at some point in your life. And we seem to be in this place where instead of telling children, it's okay to be uncomfortable in your body, right? Like, you're growing, it's an awkward time. You're going through puberty, but you'll get through it and you'll be comfortable, and you'll get comfortable in your own skin. And that just takes time. Like, let it work itself out. And actually, if you leave kids like that alone, kids that have gender dysphoria, it's something like, I think there was a study where over 80% of these boys who suffer from gender dysphoria actually became comfortable just by going through puberty. They ended up not being trans. They just became comfortable in their birth sex. And I think it was almost 90%. It's like 88%. And the majority of them ended up being gay. I'll tell you, I have a friend, the neighbor she had across the street was a lesbian woman, and she has a son and a daughter. For a few years, the son started wearing dresses, having long hair, and saying his name was Max and that he was a girl. And my friend, I remember she was like, yeah, it's kind of interesting because the mother was actually said, I am not doing anything to my child to medicate him or anything like that. Like, I'm not doing anything that would change his biology. We'll just see where this lands. And then it ended up, she said, it was like last year, the kid was around 12, 13. And she's like, all of a sudden, he just started wearing boys' clothes, got a shorter haircut, and went back to being a boy. And actually, in my friend's case, she has a son and a daughter. She said when the boy thought he was a girl or whatever, he was friends with her daughter. And then when he just went back to being a boy, he ended up, he became friends with their son. And so that's what happens when people leave them alone. And that's what you should be doing is if your child comes to you and says, I think I'm the opposite sex, I think as a parent, the best thing you can do is to guide them to become happy in their birth sex. I mean, that's your job. It's not I don't think parents should be participating in the delusions. And I understand it's hard, but I think being a parent is hard. And sometimes you have to have these difficult conversations and help your child find their way and not just participate in something you know isn't true. Here, let's keep listening.
And I have to tell you, the LGBTQ community is so tired.
Okay. She's not part of the LGBTQ community. I just want to make that clear again. The reason she claims it is because her husband is pretending to be a woman. And his name is now Lily. It used to be Landon. She was with him when he was presenting as a man, and now he presents as a woman. And she uses that to claim that she's part of the community. But the reality is she's just a heterosexual woman. She's with a man, right? Man, woman, man. So, we got a call. Yeah, put him through. Let's go. You can put him through, Mr. Producer. So that's the point here.
Here you go. Tracy, are you there?
I am here.
Goud, can you hear us?
Yeah. Yep, I can hear you. Hey, Tracy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I didn't want to interrupt what you were talking about, so you can go ahead and finish that.
Oh, okay. I can take a break. It's okay. I can talk about the trans issue all day long and getting them out of our community. This is the best thing.
I know, right?
This has been the highlight of my entire weekend. I saw that on Friday night, and I was just on the moon that President Trump cut them out of our community.
It's so funny. It is true though. Like it's crazy what's happening. He's doing some really good things. I'm happy that he's in. But I wanted to call and tell you about what happened at the Salt Lake County Central Committee this past weekend.
Yeah, tell us about it. I know you guys voted on was it a bylaw amendment?
Yeah, it was a bylaw amendment, and then we tried to vote for a resolution against, I think it's HB 27, the one that they're trying to enlarge the voting precincts. And I'm learning that it's an informed issue. Like, we need to get out and inform a little bit more with the precinct chairs, because this has been my second meeting that I've attended, and boy, do they try to confuse you and twist it up. And I don't know if it's intentional or if it's just, I don't know, it's not organized as well or something. But part of the bylaw that we were trying to pass was to say, if you're an elected official, you cannot sit on the state central committee. You can't serve there. And the reason being is because at every level of government, we should be able to have representation, and even in our parties. So once somebody is elected, they need to go and do that job. They need to move on and go do that job. Plus, their view changes. Their view changes because now they're representing the entire community. They're not representing just a party. They should stick with our values, but they need to go on and do their job. And that way the party can still hold them accountable when they are not acting in accordance with our values and our platform. And so we tried to pass this bylaw, and we had Dan McKay, we had Mark Strong, we had Doug Fifia, or I don't know how you say his name, but they were all there, and a couple other people that were there. Well, Dan stood up to talk in opposition. So did Doug, and Shannon actually. She's a great patriot, that she was there. She actually told Dan to get out of line. She said, "You don't have any business standing up here saying this." You know, she goes, "You're against it because you're an elected official." And first of all, we should get them out of being precinct chairs too, because they're doing the same thing. So I videoed. So after that, he walked over and started telling Doug what to say, and because Doug was still in line. And so I recorded it. I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to show you an example of why we need this in our bylaws. It's to diverse power, diverse influence. Like they're influencing our internal party procedures in order to keep their power and their influence within the party, when they should just move on and do their job that we elected them to do." So I recorded it. And then I made a video of it, and I posted it out there. And boy, has Chris come apart. Chris, no, he has lost his mind. He's sitting in precinct chairs saying it's disrespectful, and I'm like, no, it's educational. I'm teaching these people. This is why we don't want these elected officials in these positions of the party. Other people would like to serve anyways. Let them serve. You are serving in a different position. So Chris knows having to come apart about that video. And it's just like, I'm not going to stop teaching the people, because that's what's happened. They have twisted meanings of things and spread misinformation. Like, it's mean to include their reason for to deny it was, it's mean to keep them off the list. Well, no, they have a different job. They're already serving in a manner. Let somebody else serve their community, because somebody else will never be in that position. And then, when
that's an interesting point. I also wonder about.
They got up there and, are you saying something?
No, I was just saying. I think your point's interesting.
Everybody. What's that?
No, I was just saying. I think your point's kind of interesting because I think it would be hard to be both a party official and then also an elected official, and to dedicate your time to both, right? And so maybe that's another point to what you're saying, right, that these elected. Yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Half of them don't even show up most of the time because they aren't, they're busy. So, half of them don't even show up. So they're taking a position that they're not even participating in half the time. But if there's something that they need to fight, boy, they'll be there. They showed up on Saturday. And they confused everybody. They made it feel like that, or made everybody think that if this passed, they would not be able to work with the state central committee of the party. I'm like, no, that's not what it means. Everybody can go to the state central committee, and you can always go and participate in the meeting. You just can't vote or speak at it, but you can go in there and learn. It doesn't prevent you from participating or working with the party, but the representatives stood up and told that and twisted it and made everybody confused. And it's come obvious that Doug does not know or understand what a representative form of government is, because he stood up and said the reason why we need it is because we are a representative form of government, and he needs to represent those representatives. That was really funny.
I think, yeah, I mean, some legislators are pretty prolific, you know, like Jordan Tusher, he's on the state central committee. And I actually think he does a lot of work on the committee, and then also in the legislature, he's a pretty prolific legislator. I'm not getting that sense from Doug, at least not yet. He's only proposed one bill so far this session, which is, you know, some might say it's his first term, but the other first termers that are coming in on their first term have multiple bills they proposed. I think there's a couple of them are Democrats, like MAGA and Nguyen, both have multiple bills. He's the only one I've seen that only has one. So I feel like he's actually maybe a good example of why we want legislators and elected officials to just focus on that job and not on party politics, you know?
Right. And well, to me, it's obvious why he was chosen. He was chosen because he's a yes boy. He'll do what they tell him to, and he'll vote the way they tell him to. But so then we moved on to the resolution, and the resolution was just saying, you know what? If any of you guys support HB, I think it's HB 27, where it enlarges the voting precinct. And literally what it's doing is it's eliminating delegates and eliminating precinct chairs and eliminating county and state delegates. It will do it for that because the party bylaws say that the number allocated is allocated according to voting precincts. And if you move from 1250 to 3,000, it cuts out delegates. And the people do not understand that. And so I've got to do an education video on that because, again, you have Chris Null, who I don't know if he's purposely doing this or if he really can't comprehend things or if he just listens to what he's told. I don't know. I don't know where he's getting his misinformation because he thinks it's better for him. It's better for him. Well, no, it's not better. We're losing representation. We're diluting the representation, which is not what we want. As a constitutional republic, we want more representation, and you dilute that when you make them larger. And so that one flopped.
Yeah, okay, so can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
I thought that the reason that Chris has advocated for this is that specifically in Salt Lake County, there's a lot of precincts where we don't really have a lot of Republican voters. And so the concern is that you could have precincts in Salt Lake City, Mill Creek, the East Bench, where it's full of essentially wealthy white liberals that are not Republicans. And so what you have is, I think it increases like the Democrats that come and run as Republicans, like that's typically where they're coming from. Well, and that sounds like that's part of his concern, right?
So part of his concern is he's not very smart, in my opinion, because the actual law should be based on population, not active voter. And then he always bases it on Republican voter. No, it should be based on population. And so even if you don't have someone participating in it, you go and work that area and talk to the people about your party and try to get a representative there and who would represent the party. He treats it totally different. It's not about him, there's no representation over there. Well, then go do your job and work it. Work that area and say, go talk to the independents and say, come on, I want to come learn about our party. We want you back in. We're going to do things different. But he doesn't. The less representatives that they have, it's a better for a communist community or a communist form of government because there's no representative there. So he's just making it bigger. And there's actually been case law around it that says it's supposed to be based on population, not active voter, because that will change all the time.
Okay. So just so we can wrap, so everyone understands, did the bylaw amendment fail to get 2/3 of the vote by 20 votes? And then did the resolution fail as well?
They both failed. The resolution got on the actual. It got on the actual because it wasn't originally on the agenda, but it actually made it to the agenda, so people wanted to hear about it. But then they got confused. I mean, they stand up there and they confuse people, and the bylaw lost by 20 votes. Like, you just have to have a majority on both. You just had to have a majority on both. But I know maybe it's 2/3. I don't remember what it is. It might be 2/3. But
I saw that Mike Carey made a comment. Mike Carey put a comment saying it needed to be 2/3 to hit to make the change. I don't know what the bylaw says about that. So
it's probably
I didn't know if it was.
But he's just, they're so ill-informed, and it's sad. So I think that's going to be one of my things I do too, is start to inform everybody, because there needs to be an understanding how the government is supposed to work. Otherwise, they just trick you. I mean, they're like, just like they did with the bylaw. Ooh, she's trying to make it, or the bylaws committee wants it, so they won't even work with the legislature. I'm like, no, that's not what it says. Just go do your job and let somebody else be in the political party. And it just baffles me. But I wanted to tell you about that this last weekend, so people understood. But hopefully we can bring it back and maybe tweak it a little bit and see if we can educate people. I know a lot of people saw that video and they're going, yeah, that does make sense, because you see now how they're influencing the internal procedures of a party, and they shouldn't be, because they're different. They're in a different position now. It's all about power, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Well, thanks for calling in and giving us a CCM update. We appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. I'll talk to you.
Bye. Okay, let me continue let's continue watching our video of Representative Sahara Hayes. As I said, she is not part of the LGBTQ community. I guess she could be, maybe she's part of the LGBTQ plus community because she claims it's mental health issues. So she could claim anything, but she's not part of the LGB community. So here we go.
We are so tired.
No, we're not tired at all. The LGB is happy that we are marginalizing and getting the TQ plus out of our community.
Of being scared every year when this body meets, because we don't know how we're going to be targeted.
No, we're not. I actually support passing that bill that will keep men out of women's dorm rooms. And in fact, when that bill was proposed, I emailed the bill sponsors and told them that the Utah Gay Straight Coalition would oppose that bill as it was originally written, because it mirrored language that is in HB 257, in that it said, if you are a man and you get your birth certificate amended and some form of bottom surgery, that you could go and use a women's dorm room. And I emailed the sponsors and said, we are going to oppose it unless you change this language and make it so that men are unapologetically and categorically banned from women's dorm rooms. And they responded and they did it. So message to Representative Sahara Hayes, the gays in Utah actually don't want men in women's dorm rooms. So please stop using us for your radical agenda.
And I have to say, this does not feel like the Utah way that I've heard so much about. This feels like being...
The Utah way, I don't know, people always cite this when they want to push some weird radical agenda. Putting pornographic books in schools, I don't think is the Utah way. Letting boys play girl sports is not the Utah way. Letting boys in girls' bathrooms and locker rooms is not the Utah way. And letting men go into women's dorms is not the Utah way. So I've only been here for 5 years, and I've already picked up on that. She grew up here and apparently doesn't know.
Being pushed aside and being scapegoated again and again and again. And
no one's being scapegoated. Again, stay out of women's spaces. This is all really easy, and so it's amazing to me that she hasn't figured this out yet.
Marcy is a girl who...
Marcy is a boy.
She cared enough about other students
He
to be an RA.
He wanted to be an RA in a women's dorm, okay? And here's what we don't know. We don't know if Marcy is a trans man or if he is an autogynephile. And most trans women, these are men who transition to be women, are actually autogynephiles, which means that they get sexually aroused when you treat them like a woman. It is a sexual fetish. So that means that when you go up to a trans woman and you use her, prefer her, her, call her, you call her miss, whatever, you actually are participating in their sexual fetish and turning them on. So,
and she and other students like
other students
are
like
just as worthy of safety and privacy.
He can have safety and privacy in the men's dorm, or he can go and be in an individual apartment.
I am hopeful that my colleagues will join me in voting no, and I thank you for your time.
Fortunately, they approved it. Now, my point here is that, let me show you this. This is Representative Sahara Hayes on the right. On the left is her husband. That is a man pretending to be a woman. And that is why she put Sahara Hayes, the actual woman in this, is constantly pushing the trans agenda. She's doing it to justify her husband succumbing to his mental health problems and taking hormones and transitioning. But I still think he has his band parts. So, and the point here is that, let me just kind of wrap this together. When somebody comes to you and tells you that they're having gender dysphoria or they think they're the opposite sex, our goal as a society should be to help them become comfortable in their birth sex. Becoming trans will lead you to a lifetime of mental and physical health problems. You will never be happy. You will never be comfortable. Sorry, I'm only laughing because you see the picture of their dog. People have pointed out that the poor dog looks crazy, but I love dogs. I'm sure they take good care of him or her. But anyway, the point is we should help people become comfortable in their birth sex. Our entire goal when somebody comes to us and says that they are suffering, that they think the way to help with their suffering is to change their sex, should be that is not correct. And let me help you become comfortable in your birth sex. And we should do everything we can to make that happen. Instead, in Utah, we have really high rates of children who are identifying as trans, parents who are participating in that delusion and helping them down that path instead of fighting it with every being of your body and helping your child become comfortable in their birth sex. That's your job as a parent. And I know I'm not a parent, so I'm saying this as someone who's not a parent, but I have seen this in my friends and family when this type of stuff has arisen, where they don't actually participate in it and the child ends up being able to overcome it. And so I just tell all of you, our goal as a society should be to minimize the entire trans sanity that's been going on to eradicate the trans agenda from Utah's government and from our society as much as possible. If we do that, you will start to see big drops in the number of children that suffer from gender dysphoria because they'll understand it is not a real thing and it is not a solution for their problems. Okay. As promised, we will now talk about HOAs. So I actually run the Utah Gay Straight Coalition, And for the past few years, we've been working on this HOA issue. And specifically, I had people come to me and tell me about all sorts of abuses that they have suffered at the hands of their HOA. And let me just add, as we talk about this, a lot of Republicans tend to default towards the idea that there should be no regulation of anything. And so I don't agree with that. I think there are situations where we want to regulate entities, and HOAs are actually one of them. One of the reasons why is that your HOA is actually it's your home. You are living in an organization that regulates your house, which is your most precious commodity, right? Besides your family, your kids, but having a place to call home, to be able to live in, to keep you safe from the weather, from other people, it's really important. And what I found as I started working with people is there are a lot of HOAs that are extremely abusive to homeowners. And some of this happens because this is your most local form of government. So sometimes it can get extremely personal, and people can start, they can just start going, like a HOA board could go after somebody because they don't like them. And then, or for other reasons, like I think we had an example where it seemed like this resident of a condo unit was being discriminated against because he was gay. And actually the UALD, the Utah Anti-Discrimination Labor Division, found that that's what happened, that he was discriminated against. I think actually not, let me take that back. Maybe he was discriminated against because of a disability, not because he was gay. But he was also gay, and so that's why we took it up. But the point being is that there's a lot of opportunity for abuse in HOAs because they're very personal, and you want to make sure that there's appropriate due process involved in HOAs. And so we had multiple people come to us. Sorry, I just lost my place here. And talk to us about their problems with HOAs. So let me give you some statistics and you'll understand the scope of this. But right now, about 20% of Utah's homeowners live in HOAs. And 82% of new homes nationwide are built in HOAs. And I think I wasn't able to find specific data for Utah, but I would assume that it will be similar here as well. Governor Cox has promised to do 35,000 new starter homes. Keep in mind that these homes are, the way they want to build them is on small lots, right? The whole starter home concept is that you shrink the yard, you shrink the size of the home, and then you get to have ostensibly more affordable housing. I don't know if it actually works that way, and so supply and demand usually has a function, but I feel like with housing it seems to be a little bit out of whack. Before I continue, you are listening to KMMU Main Street Media Utah. We are live on Rumble, YouTube, X, and our website, kmmu.org. So thanks for listening and watching the Goud crowd. Also, if you want to call in, feel free to call in. It's 385-899-2134. So Deseret News has an article that just came out about HOAs, and it's talking about how there are some bills that are before the legislature right now, and some of the stories. And this Lon Galloway is actually one of the people that I worked with. His story, it's actually really crazy. So we'll go down a little bit here. So he had permission to rent his unit out as an Airbnb from the HOA company because I think he went to them and asked them if he could. There was no bar against it. So the HOA approved it. And then all of a sudden they changed their mind and they decided he couldn't do it anymore. They sent him so then 2 years later, he received a notice that he needed to evict his tenant. Attached was a $50 fine. Galloway said he would pay it. He did not hear back, but evicted the tenant. So he followed the instructions of the About a month later, he received a fine for more than $2,000. Okay, and also part of this is the HOA actually shut off the portals for him to pay it. Then that money, the fines kept accumulating. So it goes from $50, right? That's where we started, to $2,000, then $3,000, and eventually it ends up at $13,000 in fines, even though he complied with their directive. He had to go to court, right? And so overall, with his bill ended up being, so then he found an attorney, they took it to case, they took it to court, and it's still pending, but now the fines are at $30,000. And when I spoke to him about this, he has no idea what these fines are for. The HOA management, the HOA board, and the management company are not explaining anything to him. So he's got no idea why his fines are so high and where they're coming from. And this shows the problem with due process. Now, Representative Walter actually has an HOA bill that will limit the ability of HOAs to just keep on fining you. So hopefully that would help with the fine portion of this. Now, we actually, one of the ideas that we were pushing is the idea of having ADR, two things actually, an HOA ombudsman and an ADR program. So an ADR, for those who don't know, is alternative dispute resolution. And it is supposed to be a way to resolve disputes cheaper and faster than going to court. And so, and with a third party, right? Because sometimes you may try to go and work with people to resolve a dispute, but you're unable to do it. And so you just need a third party to be able to help mediate. And so in 2023, I actually went and I met with Speaker Wilson, and we pushed a bill to set up an HOA ombudsman with an ADR function. It was actually a bill that was proposed by Representative Phil Lyman at the time. I got a commitment from Speaker Wilson that it would be put into committee, and then I think it ended up moving to the Rules Committee, and then it got deep sixed, which was unfortunate. So it got deep sixed. I think what I learned is that there are very powerful interests that in Utah that really don't want more regulation of HOA companies, or actually, I shouldn't say HOA management companies. So once that happened, we started looking to see what other, because part of the reason why I got deep sixed is there's a lobbyist for this organization called CAI, and for these HOA management companies who said, hey, we have alternative dispute resolution at the organization that is it's like their trade organization for HOA companies. It's called CAI. And so we were like, okay, we'll go and try to take advantage of this, right? So we go to CAI Utah and with my members, and we say, hey, we wanted to file complaints about these members' interactions with their HOA management, the HOA board, and in turn with the management companies. It's really the real issues with the management companies. CAI Utah says, well, we don't have the capacity to do that. You need to go to national. We go to national, and we start the conversation with them. And we ended up, they say, okay, we do have a process that we can run this through. It's filing this ethics complaint. So these members all file their complaints. It's very involved. And it takes months and months. I think it was pending for something like 6 months, and then they ended up putting it on hold because of the legislative session and the potential that there could be another mechanism for people to be able to deal with these types of disputes that passes the legislature. The point being that there is really no ADR, no mechanism to have a third party help people resolve these disputes before they go to court. And we're dealing with people's homes. And I'll just add, I don't live in an HOA. I hate them. So I just don't want people telling me what to do with my property. I think it's annoying. So, but I'm very sympathetic to this, because if the reality is this, you may not be able to make that choice that I made. Because of the fact that so many homes are being built in HOAs, and it could be an affordability issue. It could be where you're trying to live. All the new homes are built in an HOA, and that's just, so we may need to make sure that these homeowners are protected. And right now, like I said, it's only 20% of Utah's homeowners that are in HOAs, but that number is going to grow, and it's going to keep growing. Hello, Mr. Producer. Are you there? I feel like you came on. Maybe not. Oh, okay. You can put him through. We're going to have Roland. He's calling in, and he's going to talk about his experience with
Roland, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear him. He was breaking up every third word or so, but I think it's gotten better.
Can you hear us, Goud?
Oh, okay. I can hear you, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, hey, Roland, welcome to the show.
Goud. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm good. Do you want to tell us about your experience with your HOA for the house you have down near St. George?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, Goud, I want to thank UGSC for listening to this HOA concern. Somebody once told me long ago that they made a comment to me. They said, I want you to listen the way that you want to be heard. And that made so much sense to me. And we really appreciate UGSC for listening to this HOA concern that really is focused on helping homeowners to protect and obtain protection on due process. And, I think one of the things that I want to say on the front end is I was kind of thrust into this crusade, if you will. I'm not really an advocate for anything. I'm a busy man. I own a business, and just by virtue of me going through this, it's really turned me into somebody that really wants to help individuals that are going through this. And I wanted to start off by saying that. So in April of 2021, I purchased a rental property in St. George, Utah. And I was pretty good about reading the contract, the CC&R, making sure that everything was in good order, made sure that the finances were good. So I did due diligence as it relates to making sure that my investment was sound. And after being there for probably 3 months, we had a roof leak. And I reported it to the HOA, and they came out and fixed it, or what we thought was fixed it. And it wasn't a month later, we had another leak, and they came out and fixed it. And this just kept going. And within a 6-month period of time, we ended up having 6 or 7 leaks. Then I hired my own contractor to go up and look at the roof, and come to find out that this property was 40 years old, and the roofs were absolutely shot and needed to be replaced. So I brought that to the attention of the HOA, and they said, no, we're just going to fix what needs to be fixed, and that's all we're going to do. Well, if you looked at the CC&Rs, the contract, which it literally is a contract, said that the HOA was responsible for the upkeep, maintenance, and replacement of the roof. So we brought that to their attention and said, you know what? I don't want to have a roof leak every month. I'm pretty good about reading contracts, and in the contract, it plainly states what needs to happen here. And this went on for another couple months, and we finally had to lawyer up, and we brought to their attention that, you're out of compliance, you're not doing what you're supposed to, it needs to be replaced. And we actually had to threaten with a TRO, which is a temporary restraining order. And finally, they came back and said, you know what? We think you're right. We're going to replace your roof. And we thought the nightmare was over. And they came in and replaced our roof. And it wasn't another month passed by, and Goud, we had another leak. And I was like, I am giving up here. So I didn't trust any of their inspectors. So I called the manufacturer of the roof, which was Eagle Tile, and they told me, well, we have a guy that comes out and will inspect. He actually lives in Colorado. So we flew him out. This was after they replaced the roof. We flew him out, and he was on the roof for about a half a day, and he came over to me and he said, Roland, I don't quite know how to tell you this. And I said, just tell me straight. And he said, well, the new roof that they just put on has no less than 18 code violations.
Oh my God.
And I was like, God, to be fair. Yeah. So, I mean, what does that tell you? I mean, you can envision that. What was the procurement process? I mean, who did they have come do this? We found out later that it was a roofing company that basically just did insurance policies, and they contracted out with this guy that had no clue what they were doing. They didn't even use the manufacturer's installation protocol. So there again, the HOA continued to fight us and say, no, this thing now, he's got to be wrong. They didn't even go get their own third-party inspector to come look at it. And the fight continued. And we racked up a total of $250,000 in attorney fees. This nightmare took 2 years to resolve. I mean, it was just unbelievable. We brought it to the attention to the 5th District Court in St. George,
okay.
Judge Jay Winward, and we won a summary judgment. And the claim in that judge's response on the actual order, he said on there that he was talking to the HOA and he said, you cannot defend bad behavior. And that's literally what we're talking about here. There are HOAs within the state of Utah that are basically layman individuals that are directing and operating, in some instances, $100 million real estate ventures. They have no clue what they're doing. Absolutely zero clue. And the problem is there's no alternative dispute resolution in any of the state Community Association Act. And so that's really what I would like to see. I think that, there needs to be protection for consumers and due process for individuals that are going through similar things like this, because the only alternative is a absolute nightmare financial disaster, and most people don't have the wherewithal or the capital to stick up for themselves.
Yep.
And most of these board of directors and HOAs, they have a war chest to operate with, and they know that you cannot keep pace with them. It's just literally not possible to outpace them financially, and they can bury you.
Yeah, and so with so you're saying we need ADR. Do any of the bills that have been proposed right now have ADR yet?
You know what? They do not. I want to say that our current legislators right now are moving very, very slowly in the right direction. But I think that our legislators are very reluctant to challenge the lobbyists in here. I know that Representative Neil Walters currently has a bill out there that would help owners review vendor contracts within the HOA. Cheryl Acton also has a bill that talks about board education and reviews as it relates to that. I know that Phil Lyman had a bill some years ago that wasn't an actual alternative dispute resolution. He didn't call it that, but it was something similar to that. And so I think currently right now, there are a few legislators that have small pieces of HOA reform, but nothing to the extent of a alternative dispute resolution that would protect the homeowners and protect the taxpayers and assure that there's due process out here, because I call it the David and Goliath of the HOA, because, you know, if you have a community that has 200 units and you do the math on that, on the HOA fees and the influx of funds coming in, they can just outpace any single owner. They just have capital to just really run you off the board. So,
yeah, definitely. Were there any, when you were looking at this issue, were there any other states that you found that have ADR or have maybe programs you think Utah could model its own after?
So I'm glad you asked that, because one of the things that we knew that we needed to do is, and I've always been a proponent, it doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel. And so I went out, and I believe that there are 16 other states, I might be off one or two, 16 other states in the union that do have a ombudsman office, and we wanted to kind of job shadow, if you will, and go out and get an understanding of, were these offices productive? How long have they been in operation? Which ones had great paradigm models that maybe Utah could mirror? And one of the ones that really opened their doors to us and allowed us to come in and review what they were doing was Nevada. We did, I think, a total of 3, and out of those 3, the one that really shined the best for us was Nevada. That state, Nevada's ADR, you can't litigate until you move through the ADR process, which makes it really, really strong for coming in and taking a look and lifting the hood and see what's really going on. So to answer your question, we feel that out of the ones, the small samplings that we did, Nevada's was one that we felt was a really good model that we think that the state of Utah should look into to mirror.
Yeah. Okay.
But the other thing now the other thing I wanted to say was, you know, during our investigation, we really wanted to look at other resources that might be able to protect the homeowner or the consumer. And so what we did is we approached Utah CAI. We even went to the national level CAI. We approached the Utah Division of Real Estate, the Utah Division of Consumer Reports, the Fair Debt Collection Practice, FDCPA, and we also approached the Utah Property Rights Ombudsman Office, in addition to, you know, multiple elected officials. So we exhausted all resources. We thought there's got to be some other agency out here that would have the ability to listen to us and have some kind of binding effect on all of this that was going on some area of protection for the consumer, and we hit a stumbling block at each one of these agencies. There is literally nothing else out there to protect the homeowner or the consumer.
Yeah, and what's surprising about that is your home is really kind of, I think, one of your most important assets, right? It's the roof on your head. It's the place you stay for protection. So to not have some sort of protections in place just seems like a real big problem, and one that hopefully we can get the legislature to step in and solve.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Your mortgage, a purchase of your home, will undoubtedly be the biggest expenditure that most people ever have in their life. And to have that not protected with some capacity is just astounding to me. And, you know, when you think about, so my issue was my roof, and my issue was that the board of directors, the HOA, was not following house rules. They weren't following the contract, because CC&Rs literally are a contract. But there's a whole host of other things. I mean, there's, and I mentioned it, the fair debt collections. There are, you know, boards out there that are self-will run riot, creating their own policies. There are, you know, house rules, CC&R adherence, rules and regulations, not following the laws. So there's no protection in all of these different areas for the owners. And so your only alternative, and I was just blessed because I had the wherewithal to be able to keep the pace up with my HOA from a litigation standpoint. But I would be willing to say that 98% of individuals out there cannot keep the pace and will just be run over. And so when you hear that, and you hear all the different protections that we have for consumers, but the largest expenditure that you will ever spend on is a home, a mortgage, you're buying your, like you said, the roof over your head. To not have protection for an expenditure and something so vital in your life is just absolutely astounding to me.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for calling in. Do you, I mean, I don't know, do you have social media where you want people to follow you, or I guess any tips or anything you want people to be looking for as we go forward here?
You know, I would say keep your finger on the pulse of, you know, the HOA issues that are coming out in the media. Our only saving grace literally is our legislators. They're the ones that are going to be able to protect us. I would say that, you know, the constituency of our legislators out there is going to be very vital and important for individuals to voice their opinion out there to your legislator. I think another great thing is to, if you do have HOA issues, you need to voice them, whether you do a grandma request or sending emails to your legislator. It is going to be imperative, because, you know, the old adage, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, absolutely. You know, the more we can get people sounding off on this is a pervasive issue in our community, in our state. It is something that is vital. It is something that will allow the simple taxpayer that maybe has socioeconomically challenged financially can have a voice in this. And I think it's imperative that our legislators understand the totality in which these kind of practices are happening. It is pervasive, and there's a lot of it going on. And I think that our legislators, it's incumbent upon them to be able to protect us from these issues that are happening so frequently.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate the input.
We really do appreciate UGSC for listening to this concern. So thank you.
Thanks. Okay, sorry. So just so I remember, UGSC is the Utah Gay Straight Coalition. That's the group I run that I was talking about earlier. There's this article in Deseret News is getting quite a few comments. It just posted a little while ago. I think it's already got 21 comments. I haven't read these, so I don't want to go through and read them because I don't know what people will say. They're long. I will say they're kind of long though, so interesting. Like I said, I do think. Oh, here's one. HOAs should be outlawed entirely. I would never ever buy a home with an HOA. Not a chance in the netherworld. I'd let some nosy neighbor try to tell me what I can and can't do on my own property. Not a chance. That tends to be my view of this. But then the next comment is, so in the case of a condo building, who then is responsible for common areas, inside and outside, maintenance of walls, roofs, sidewalks, exterior doors, enforcing quiet hours, etc. So, I can say I won't live in an HOA, but I also live in a single family home on a quarter-acre lot. So it's very different than if you live in a condo building where you actually need to have some sort of governance structure in place for all those common areas. I think those are fair points. We'll keep on, I think, talking about different issues with HOAs as we go forward. Like I said in the article, I know some of the people that were interviewed because they did come to UGSC, the Utah Gay Straight Coalition, and we helped them through the process. We helped them do the research. We helped them get in contact with legislators. For those of you who are not as involved with the legislative process, it can take quite a while for an idea to go from to go through, identify a problem, come up with solutions, and then get a legislator who can successfully run a bill. Sometimes it can happen quickly. Like last year, I helped, I think I've talked about this before, Representative Loubet ran a bill where we changed the rules around the requirement for clergy to report child abuse they learned through a confession from a perpetrator. But this HOA issue is I think it's more complicated, and there's more money involved in it than the other one. So, Mr. Producer, I see that you popped up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little thing to this. I've worked with HOAs. I don't know, I've owned properties in Washington State, Utah, California. If you're having trouble with an HOA, I found one of the best ways to deal with it is to take over the HOA. I mean, it's an elective process. The board is elected, and you can go take over your HOA, because HOAs, they don't know what they're doing half the time. And there are some protections in California and Nevada, but I mean, you get a group of people who get elected to this HOA board, and you got to read those CC&Rs over and over and find a way to make them help you. It's not easy because they're just people, and they're homeowners, and they don't know about roof construction or plumbing or electrical contracting. They don't know any of this stuff, so they outsource it, and you don't know what you're going to get. You just don't know. And when it comes to things like construction, my dad was in the construction industry. He would say, go get 3 bids and add them together.
It's kind of, I bought a house, I remember in, oh God, it was probably like 2010. And this was in Crystal City in Virginia. I used to live in the DC area. And when we were doing the inspection, and it was a little dumpy house. It was like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. Actually, it was like 900 square feet. It's actually probably a good size for me. And it was raining when the inspection happened, and there was a leak in the roof that we found. And I remember when I went to the homeowner and I was like, hey, there's a leak. Can you repair it? He actually turned around and was like, I will give you the money to repair it, but I will not repair it for you because I don't want you coming back and saying that I did it wrong. And maybe that's another way for this, like a leak like that to be handled, right? Is for the HOA to say, you find the contractor, you get it repaired, and then we'll reimburse you if it's our responsibility. And that way you can make sure it's done properly, because to your point, the HOA board members, they may not know where to look for a good contractor. They may not know what to look for when the contractor comes and is talking about roofs, and he says, I'm going to fix the leak, and they don't know what to do. So.
Well, and it's really their job to deal with it. But like I said, they don't know how. I mean, unless you have some kind of construction background, you don't know what to do about water mains to the street, or, I mean, there's just so many things. And because they're condos or townhomes, they're linked together, it has to be done by the group. And it's just my final comment: don't ever buy a home with an HOA. No CC&R. That's the real solution. But I mean, you can't get around it if you're buying rental properties. You can't get around it.
Yep. Okay, that is also my solution. So, but I am sympathetic to the fact that people, I mean, there are homes in HOAs. They're nice. You may have to buy one. Maybe that's all you can afford. Maybe that's all that's in your community. And so I still think we should have proper protections in place. We have to kind of, we have to account for all sorts of different situations, because we're all different. We're all going to have different needs. And I just want to make sure people are protected when it comes to their homes. Okay, I promised that I'd be honest with you. I actually want to talk about the Sundance thing, because that is just driving me up the wall. But I also do deeply care about election issues. And so I wanted to, this bill is actually, this is HB 300 by Representative Burton. Is his last name Burton? I think so. I think his first name is Jefferson. So by Representative Burton. And this is a good bill. I like it. And I just wanted to encourage people to go and help support it. There's going to be a hearing tomorrow at 3:40. And what this bill does is it begins to whittle away at this kind of unfettered mail balloting that we have in Utah. I know that most people like mail balloting in Utah. I get it. But it is actually not as secure as they keep asserting to you. And I believe a lot of people, they want to believe that it's secure because, you can put them through, Mr. Producer. They want to believe it's secure because they want to keep doing it. But we'll get back to this bill in a second. We actually have, I believe, my friend Ryan, who is Lady MAGA, who called in.
Ryan, can you hear us?
Yes, hello there.
Hello. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Goud, I'm your #1 fan. I think what you're doing in Utah is so amazing. And to anybody listening to this, you just need to remember that we are blessed to have Goud in our state fighting for what is right. So,
well, thank you. Hey, I wanted to ask you, so, this week, or last week, I guess now, on Friday night, it's a great way to start the weekend, the Trump State Department changed their website to have LGB travel instead of LGBTQ plus travel. That made me so happy, and I wanted to hear your reaction to it.
Oh, there's reason to rejoice. We are being unburdened by what has been. And what has been is, gay people who just want to live our lives, pay our taxes, gentrify neighborhoods, take care of all the women in the world, make them look great and be good neighbors. We have had a chain around our necks for about 6 years now. The TQ plus XYZ alphabet mafia has just really decimated our credibility and our respect. And people kind of hate gay people like myself now. And I can't say I blame them. It's because they associate us with this TQ radical element. And it's so refreshing to have a president who acknowledges that there are two genders, men and women. I'm a drag queen. I love to dress up, but I'm not a woman. I would never claim to be a woman. And so it's amazing for your average, hardworking gay person who doesn't make that our identity. We don't throw it all around. We don't have to wave a rainbow. We're just living our lives. And the goal was to just live your life, and leave people alone and be free and live and love who you love. That completely changed once they added the T. I don't even know when they added the T. I think it was in the 90s. And then it just kept expanding. And now they call it the queer community, which is essentially just filled with straight people with purple hair who want to be part of a minority. They want to feel special, so they've created this alleged queer community. And what I think is most hilarious is apparently the trans section of the website that used to exist, it redirects them to the sexually transmitted disease.
Oh man,
the website, which is actually it's very compassionate because transgender people are plagued with suffering from STDs, especially Black trans women are one of the highest sufferers of HIV and AIDS. So I think it's just a very compassionate move to help them live their best lives by redirecting that.
I actually have up on the screen. You probably can't see it, but I have a photo that Representative Sahara Hayes is always claiming that she is part of the LGBTQ plus community. She's not part of the LGB, so she's not part of our community. She's part of the other part that we have now cleaved off. But and the reason she claims it is because her husband is pretending to be a woman, and he looks, like he is appearing like a woman. I don't know that he's actually gotten everything done or not, but so she claims that because she is with him and he has mental health problems, she is now part of the LGBTQ plus community. But I think that she's just a heterosexual woman who is trying to use us to push her radical agenda. And so now I'm glad that I can say, I don't care what you are in the TQ plus, you're not part of us. Like, you need to go off and do your own thing. And
no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Her and her mentally ill husband are the perfect example of what they call the queer community, the LGBTQIA plus. There's a reason they put plus on there. They're constantly recruiting. They're constantly looking for new ways of sexualizing other people and including them in their weirdo alphabet nonsense. And so she's the perfect example of, one, somebody who doesn't deserve to live in Utah. She should be excommunicated from Utah and sent to Portland. And two, she's a perfect example of, no, I'm serious. It's like if you move to Utah, listen, gay people like you and me, we don't fit the traditional Utah narrative that makes Utah great, but we defend those people. We defend those traditional families and all these wonderful people who make Utah great. People like her, they're literally attacking the very foundation that makes Utah a wonderful place to be. And that is that it is conservative and majority traditional families out there, they're not our enemy. And so that lady is, she's a joke, she's a farce, she's a humiliation, and she's a traitor. And her gross husband is, who knows why he's doing that. You know, some people say, oh, you do Lady Maga, you dress up as a drag queen because it's a fetish. It's not a fetish for me. It's theatrics, it's comedy, it's fun. But for somebody like him, anybody who like goes out looking like a man in their day-to-day life, or just going to the grocery store wearing, you know, women's short skirts or something, there's a term for it. I think it's called like autogynephiling. Like that.
Yes, that's autogynephilia. Yep.
Yeah, and what the heck does he have to do with you or me or anybody who is sane and recognizes that there are two genders? I mean, this clown show and this circus is coming to a close, but we have to remember we are going to get caught in the crossfires as gay people, because they have hijacked and they have polluted the idea of what gay people are, what we want, you know, what our ideals are, and people are, with very good reason, very much homophobic again. Mm-hmm. And I don't blame them, but that's why voices like you and me, we just got to speak out. And there's tens of thousands of other common sense people, from Conservative Ant to Scott Pressler, Brandon Strzok. We're just reclaiming our dignity and then moving on. Ideally, nobody would even have to talk about being gay. It's not special. We're not special. We're not. There's nothing really to celebrate. But the divorce from the TQIA+ is the first step to healing. It truly is. It's the first step to healing.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for calling in. I appreciate the call. I'll talk to you soon, Ryan.
Of course. Okay. Have a great night.
You too. That was great. You see, I'll just add a couple pieces to this. Okay, like first of all, like we have totally been unburdened by what has been. These two people on the screen are not part of our community at all. They should go. She probably should go to Portland. She'd be happier there, and so will he. One of the things that I think people don't realize is really you can live a very happy, satisfying life as a gay man or woman. And in some ways, it actually, you have a lot more free time, right? Because I'm like a 47-year-old middle-aged man. I don't have kids, and so I think if we are positive about these types of things, you could have these people that are very productive members of society that make a big impact. You see that with Scott Pressler in terms of turning Pennsylvania red. I mean, the effort he put into that, it was amazing, and he turned it red. He's now working on New Jersey. If you think about a lot of the changes that have happened in Utah, have also been driven, I think, by gay men. I mean, Ryan and I have done a lot of work on trans issues in Utah in terms of fighting the trans agenda that a lot of people were falling for. You had people like Ryan and I that were at the forefront of that, trying to fight it. And I think I remember once seeing, I had a friend and he posted, it was really interesting. Somebody responded to him and said, oh, well, something about you should have done this. And he said, well, I could have gotten fired from my job. And the person said, oh yeah, that's what happened. Both Ryan and I got fired from our jobs for political advocacy. And I responded to him and I was like, so you have 5 kids, right? You're saying it's not worth it for you to get fired from your job for advocating to protect them from the trans agenda that's being taught in their schools, but you're okay with 2 gay guys doing it and getting fired, and you think that makes you look good? That makes you look bad to me. If the gay dudes who don't have kids are fighting for your kids, then you should be out there fighting too, right? Like, I have no stake in this. I have nephews, as I've told you, and I have other family members that I care about, and I don't want them to be exposed to this. The only thing is they're not here; they're in San Diego. So, but the point is that, as gay men, there's a lot of positive things we can do, and I think a lot of times what happens is all the freaks are the ones that get their voices are the loudest, right? It's Sahara Hayes, who is essentially just a freak. And she's not living a normal life. She's got a husband who has a serious mental illness that she is now participating in his complete delusion about himself instead of helping him. She did not help him. And she was with him when he was a man. So she turned him into that when she should have been helping him to become comfortable in his birth sex. So you can I guess maybe the point is this: you can have what's on the screen for you, or you can have normal gays and lesbians that'll actually be on your side. And I know a lot of conservative gay men and lesbians in this state who are politically involved and do a lot of stuff, and they're amazing people. And like that passion is very useful, because again, most of them don't have kids, and so I think it lends itself to having more time. Okay, so now what were we talking about? We were talking about this bill, HB 300. And this bill, so one of what this bill does, like I was saying earlier, is it begins to kind of put some right and left limits on mail voting. And so I would encourage people, as I've said, I encourage people to go and support this bill. There is a hearing on it tomorrow at 3:40 p.m. What this bill does a few things. One is, maybe I should give you a little background. Right now, for mail voting, they do what's called signature verification. Actually, let me put it this way. Signature verification is your ID. So I go and I vote in person because I don't find it satisfying to turn in the mail ballot. The only times I've ever done it is when I have had to go and deploy overseas. In that case, I'm not here, so I obviously can't vote in person. So I do a mail ballot. So unsatisfying. It's like the worst experience ever. So here, when I'm in town, I always go and I vote in person, and I make time for it. Because, they have early voting when you can go. You can vote on election day. I mean, there's so many options. And I just think it's a nice, clear system. I want to go show my ID, and then I want to vote. And if you vote in person, you have to show your photo ID in order to do it. If you vote by mail, they do what's called signature verification. So they verify what your signature on the outside of your envelope to multiple signatures that they have on file. And that file is constantly growing with more and more signatures that you're submitting. So it's not a constant, it is a constantly changing file. So it's not the same as your photo ID. And in fact, what it does is it gives county clerks a lot of discretion to be able to pass your signature through, even if it does not actually match one on file. And I believe that we should want a system where there is no discretion on identity with your county clerks. It does not make any sense. And just one more piece is this. Absentee balloting, meaning mail voting, was started for soldiers on the battlefield during the Civil War. It is meant for people who are not actually here. So people that are deployed, missionaries that are not in Utah, those are legitimate reasons to need a mail ballot. I think if you are here in Utah, there's no excuse for you to not go and vote in person. And I know people will tell me they're so busy, they have 1,000 things to do, and we're all supposed to sit here and pretend like that's a legitimate excuse. But most of the people I know that mail vote, they have time to watch TV. They have time to go to restaurants and wait until they can get seated and then sit and eat for an hour and a half. They have time for everything else except voting. And so if you think your civic duty is important, you should go vote in person. And you should go and be willing to show your ID. If it's not important to you, then don't vote. I mean, no offense, but you should be able to put the time aside to go and vote. I'll make an exception for people that are in rural areas where, if you're having to drive a couple hours to vote, that's a very different situation. But for most Utahns, you're in a suburb. This is a pretty suburban state, meaning you're in a place like Riverton versus Salt Lake City, to your benefit, by the way. And, because we don't have all the crime, the homelessness. We have the illegal alien problem here, but not the other issues. So my point being, if you're in a place like this, you have no problem going and voting in person. Okay, I guess I don't really I'm not as sympathetic to all the excuses. Except again, military deployed, maybe rural where there's not anywhere close, like it's not worth doing something closer. One more might be you're in the hospital or you're in a nursing home and you can't make it out. I will say, I feel like if you're in a nursing home, our county clerk should actually send employees there with voting equipment, and they should go and let people vote in their nursing home. I just feel like for those people that are elderly, that's something that we can do and give them the opportunity to participate personally. I think a lot of old people would actually like that. When I lived in Virginia, this is kind of a funny story. I used to pick up this lady, and I used to drive her to the polls. It was something that they did as a volunteer thing. And so I'd see her, every 6 months or whatever. And it was just a fascinating old lady. Like, poor thing, she had, she had a sister, and the sister was dead because she was old. And then her sister's husband was dead. I think the sister didn't have any kids, so there's no one there to help her. No family left. And so I used to drive her. I remember one time she asked me to take her grocery shopping, and she bought cat food. She was like, I need to buy food for my cat. And I remember thinking, I hope it's for your cat, but I'm happy to buy you anything you want. Because anyway, it's not, for me, it was like my grandmother was in India at the time. So I thought, if I would hope someone would do that for my grandmother if she needed something. Anyway, the oddly an emotional moment. I'll say this too, there's all these people that want to live forever. I hear this all the time, like, oh, these tech bros, right? Oh, I want to live forever. There's that one guy who's a complete freak. I think he's from Utah, actually. And he's doing all that weird stuff, including, he posted something on X recently where he and his son, who's 20, 30 years younger than him, had worn something so they could compare how many erections they had during the night and how long they lasted. And I was just like, gross, stop. This is disgusting. I wish someone would tell him that, but so gross. It's so gross. But anyway, the point being this: why would you want to live forever when everybody that you know is going to die? I don't want to be alive when my sister dies or my friends all die, and I don't want to live longer than my nephews who should live longer than me. That's just, I don't understand it. So it's just kind of weird. Anyway, let me get back to the bill. What this bill does is a couple of things. One, it makes it so that they'll have to station employees at the ballot drop boxes. And so when you go to drop your ballot off, you'll have to show your ID to the person there, and then they'll then put it into the ballot drop box. I think that's actually a great system. And actually, if you're using a mail ballot, I always tell people you should use a drop box and not put it in the mail. The drop box cuts down on the number of people that will touch your ballot. When you put it into the mailbox, that thing goes to the postal service center. It goes to the post office, goes to a postal service center, then it goes back to the clerk's office. Multiple people are touching it. They're not clerk's office employees. You don't know what they're going to do with it. It increases the chances for shenanigans, right? And so putting in a ballot drop box, that helps chain of custody, and it's controlled by the clerk's office. So this would make it so you show your ID. That means they don't need to do signature verification because they've already verified your identification. So in addition to being a more secure form of ID, it will speed up counting and processing of ballots. Part of why it takes weeks in Utah to count ballots is because they're doing signature verification, and that is a very slow process. My producer says we should make Election Day a holiday. I'm fine with doing that as long as you have to vote in person. If we're going to have mass mail voting like we have now, then I don't think you need a holiday, because I definitely don't need a holiday to go and stick your ballot in the mail. Or maybe some people do. I don't know. Okay, so the other thing this thing does, it's kind of interesting. First, it does not change any rules around UOCAVA. UOCAVA is the overseas ballot issue. So for soldiers, for missionaries, their current system would stay the same. It would either be that they mail them an absentee ballot, or the other thing they do is they'll send you a PDF ballot, and then you can fill it out and mail it in. And then what they do is when they get that ballot, they do what's called ballot duplication, where they take it and then they copy it onto a normal ballot so they can scan it into their system. That's a whole other process, but this doesn't touch any of that. So the other piece is, if I'm reading this correctly, if you want to get a mail ballot and you're in Utah, you have to go sign up in person with the clerk's office and show your ID. Then you can use a mail ballot and for 2 years after that point. So for the elections that happen within 2 years of when you signed up, and they will use signature verification to validate your identity after that. And then I think you would have to go do it again in 2 years. This may be a good compromise for people that absolutely just can't be bothered to go and vote in person, right? Or show their ID at the ballot drop box. So now you can set up a system, but require some extra steps in order for you to use the mail option. So I think this is a good start. And so I would encourage people, again, tomorrow at 3:40, this will be heard before committee. And let's see what committee it is, in case anyone's interested. It is the House Government Operations Committee. Okay. I will say it's a little bit for a committee hearing. So let's see what else they have on there. I've been going to fewer committee meetings this year because I just don't have the time to sit for hours. So let's see, it is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's the fourth one. This, I assume, I don't know how controversial the 3 bills are before it. So, but anyway, I would encourage people to go and to testify. You can also listen online and you can testify through Zoom as well. So if you have time, do that. If you don't, send your legislator an email. Let them know you support it. If you don't support it, let them know that. You know, the way I view it is you win some, you lose some. And if you lose them, then you just keep educating people until you make them, persuade them to come to your side. So I don't really care what side you're on this. Okay, we have 6 minutes. Let me quickly touch on my bugaboo here. This has really been bothering me. I don't know what I just did. Did I stop sharing? I don't think I did. Did I? Oh yeah, I did. Okay. Let me show you. This is my last issue I'll talk about real quick. This Sundance thing, okay? So Sundance, it literally is undermining our values in Utah. Okay, they gave out pronoun pins at festival. They told people specifically that they were not going to enforce HB 257, even though even for the events that were inside of a government building. They said, oh, it's a private rental, so we don't have to follow it. And here's how our elected officials responded. They sent Sundance a letter telling them that how much we love them and we want them to come back and we're going to give them money to do so. Of course, Governor Cox signed it because he supports the trans agenda, which is what they were pushing when they gave out pronoun pins and let people use any bathroom that they want. Explicitly told them you can use any bathroom you want in a government facility that we are renting. This list of people is basically full of government workers and people that are government adjacent, so working at nonprofits that are getting government funding. This is completely unacceptable, I think. Last year, the legislature gave Sundance $1.8 million, and this year they want to give them $3 million. I think that we should give them $0. Okay. Let me see. And here's kind of my thinking on this. I think part of what we're missing in Utah is Trump energy. We have a bunch of beta males in the legislature, and I guess beta females in the legislature that clearly they can't read the room. They don't understand that we don't need to bend over for left-wing interests in California. Because this letter that's on this, oh, I'm not even sharing the letter. Oh my God, I'm sorry. The letter they sent, it was actually printed in the LA Times, not even in Utah. So we do not need to work for left-wing interests in California. We need to tell them to F off, and that we're not going to give them any money. And think about the difference. Here's the difference. So when it came to Canada and Mexico, Trump was like, hey, I'm gonna put tariffs on you, and you need to do, 1, secure the border, 2, we need better trade terms, and various other requirements. They caved essentially within days, they both caved, completely caved. And they may have tariffs in 30 days anyway, because they're doing trade negotiations now. So I would like to see some of that energy come to Utah. The answer to Sundance is to say, we're not giving you any government funding. Okay, you can fund yourselves. This is a festival for rich people. And Sundance itself, or this place called Y Squared Analytics, actually put out an economic impact survey, and maybe I'll go into it in more detail next time, but just a couple of things here. 34% of the out-of-staters who come to watch Sundance make over $300,000 a year. 17% of the people in state make over $300,000 a year. 68% of the out-of-staters who come to Sundance, or who are, I don't even know if they just come for Sundance, they probably come for skiing and other things, make $100,000 or more, and 60% of those in state make $100,000 or more that are going to Sundance events. So this is an event aimed at wealthier people. And I just don't think that the rest of us should be subsidizing it. And by the way, it's an event aimed at wealthy people in an extremely wealthy community. Park City, and this is near Park City, I think. I've never been. I'm not into artsy movies. I think they're boring. But this is an extremely wealthy community. It's like the Martha's Vineyard of Utah. Most of the people there hate the rest of us in Utah. They think we're backwards and we're too conservative. And if we have a trans problem in Utah with parents allowing their children to transition, I can't even imagine what that looks like in Park City. That's basically a bunch of liberal white ladies who are probably transing their kids for clout. So I'm just not clear why we need to subsidize this. If it needs a subsidy, I think Summit County and Park City should provide the subsidy. The super rich white people over there can do it. Okay. Anyway, maybe next time we'll touch on this some more, because we do have the ability to influence our state's budget while they're in session, and we should probably take advantage of it. With that, we are at 7 o'clock. So thank you very much for listening to the Goud Crowd. I hope this has been informative. And like I said, we'll continue next week with some more HOA stuff. I'll probably pull in some other bill issues, and that I've been saying there's some other bills I want to highlight. And we'll see what else happens with Trump between now and then. I'm sure there'll be 100 things, so I'll try to pick a couple to talk about. And we will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.